Hey guys, good afternoon. Sorry for the delay somehow. Because some reason this display doesn't like my laptop. Sorry for the delay. So I am Laladnu Mohanty and he's Caleb. So we work for Glusterfs packaging in Fedora, also in storage SIG. So we're going to talk about a little bit of what we are doing till now and what kind of packaging issues we got, and also a little bit of history about the SIG part. Centos, why Centos came with the SIG stuff. So feel free to interrupt anywhere you want to ask questions. It will be great to answer your question and see if that makes sense to all of you. So a little bit of history. CentOS, which is CentOS core now, it used to be a binary clone of RHEL, Red Hat Enterprise Linux. So everything that goes to Red Hat Enterprise Linux comes to CentOS. So there is no way you can put a package into a CentOS. So if you want to put a package, you have to go through Fedora. Then in Fedora it goes to Rail. From Rail it will come to CentOS. It's like huge lot of time and may not be feasible to all of us. So SIG is something which you can modify some packages in CentOS, maybe enhance it, maybe more cutting edge stuff. That makes sense to a lot of things. For example, Glusterfs. So Glusterfs is a file system, it's a storage. So people don't want to upgrade. If let's say you have set up your storage and you don't want to upgrade your storage very often, right? If it's working, you just let it run. So till the time it gives you some issue and you go back and upgrade the package or fix something. So you don't want to run it in Fedora. I mean, most people don't want, because Fedora has this quick life cycle where in 11 months you have to go to a new version. But CentOS got a good life cycle of Rail, which is like 10 years, 7 years I think, 7 years or 10 years. So a lot of people in our Glusterfs community use Glusterfs, they deploy Glusterfs in CentOS. So that's like they deploy storage and stay there for long, and they can just upgrade whenever we release bug fixes or new releases in Glusterfs. So that's where it makes sense for us to do something in CentOS SIG and have our latest Glusterfs there. So I've written on this stuff, like you can enhance and modify CentOS to solve a specific set of issues. For example, if you have a user story like OpenStack or maybe Gluster, maybe Safe, maybe some other stuff, you can actually create a SIG in CentOS and actually put new packages into CentOS. So it's like the whole CentOS core, which is like very stable, and on top of it you put a couple of packages which you think would be, you need more cutting edge stuff. Okay. So the storage SIG actually started with Glusterfs and Safe. Then this couple of guys joined, OpenAFS, NV file system, OpenNV file system, and SCST, Genix SCSI target for Linux kernel. So we're working on, actually all 4 projects are working on it and trying to package it in CentOS. So it will help in many ways. For example, OpenAFS is not packaged for Rail or CentOS or Fedora. It used to be in Fedora, but now it is not. So if you want to consume in an RPM based distro or maybe EL based distro, you don't have packages. So this, I mean, the SIG would make sure that you package, the RPMs are packaged for CentOS, it works fine, and you can consume it and stuff like that. This is a picture. The Glusterfs is the ant and CentOS both combined. So Glusterfs is just distributed file system, but it has a lot of access methods. For example, you can access Glusterfs volumes through SMB, you can access Glusterfs volumes through NFS, and also through Fuse. The other stuff, like it is integrated to a lot of other ecosystem like OpenStack and to KMU. You can store images. So we started putting all packages in a single place so that you don't have to go to anywhere to get the packages. If you go to IPL, Glusterfs is not there. You go to RHEL or CentOS core, you get Glusterfs client packages, but not the server packages. But how do from community, how people can consume all these technologies easily? I mean, how to get these packages? and have a common forum when all these packages come together and you can access it. So we actually has now in StorageSig is part of Glusterfs. So we have actually packaged Samba, NFS Ganesha, CityDB, and we have published the testing packages to StorageSig, and looking for community feedback if it works fine. So we're gonna move it to stable repo. So, so how many people before the talk knew about StorageSig? Hands up, I just want to know. Oh, hi. Cool. So yeah, it's like we've already gone to testing repos and we're looking for community feedback, and once we see how it works out, we'll take it to stable repo, and it's like a forum for people. You can join us and see if you think, let's say you need a longer life cycle for a particular package, if you can come together and try to maintain it for a little longer than the community, what community gives us. So you can do that. So there's a lot of freedom. There's no restriction on us. So I'll hand over to Caleb. We're going to talk about a little bit about stuff.
How's that? Can people hear me? Yes, no? My colleagues from CEF can hear me. So part of what Lala was trying to allude to is that we have this problem that we've noticed that I'll use Debian as an example. That's not really a great example, but old versions of Debian are still shipping Gluster 3.2. They go install Debian, and then they install Gluster, and all of a sudden they've got this really old version of Gluster that doesn't work very well, and it's buggy. And then they post on the mailing list that, gee, I just installed Debian, and nothing works. Because when you install Debian, the first thing you think of is you just install the packages that Debian ships. And if you install CentOS, maybe you install EPEL, and you try and install Gluster, and it's not there. And the first thing everybody says is, well, gee, why isn't it there? It's not there because starting in RHEL 6.6, Red Hat actually started shipping pieces of Gluster in RHEL, and EPEL has this rule that says if there's anything that's in RHEL, then it can't be in EPEL. So we had to actually we had Gluster in EPEL for a long time, and we had to basically revert or extract it from EPEL and stop shipping it in EPEL. So now we're stuck in this sort of limbo where most people that expect to go to EPEL and get Gluster can't get it. And the reason I brought up Debian as an example is that very few people, even though we have bits, we have D packages for Debian on download.gluster.org, nobody ever thinks to go look at download.gluster.org for Gluster bits. And that's just as true of CentOS and RHEL. You could go get our RPMs from download.gluster.org and install from that, and then you would have the latest, best supported packages that we offer. But if nobody ever thinks to look there, then that really doesn't help us. So what we're really looking for from the storage SIG is to try and promote the storage SIG as the first place that people who are installing CentOS, we want the storage SIG to be the first place that people go to look for the latest packages. Yeah, Neil?
Given it was just a client side that was shipping RHEL, why did you have to remove the server side pieces from ePort?
Well, I didn't get to make that decision. They just said, no Glusterfs. Actually, the way Gluster packages are, there's a common package, and there's a server package, and there's some other packages. And RHEL ships the common package and a couple of the other packages. And we would ship, what we would have in EPEL would be the common package. So we just really had to yank from the sort of the least common or the greatest common denominator package. So sad, unfortunate, but I didn't make the rules, and it's fighting a losing battle to argue with the RHEL and or not the RHEL, with the Fedora and EPEL packaging committee. And the thing I learned as the father of two obstinate children is you pick your battles, right? There were other battles I wanted to have with the Fedora packaging committee, and I didn't want to burn a bridge on Gluster. So anyway, what we really want to do is build up the idea of these SIGs as the number, if not the first, at least the second place that people go to look for software for their CentOS systems. And because we already know from experience that we can promote it all over the place as much as possible, and still nobody will think of download.gluster.org. So that's the real probably for me anyway. That's sorry, I should not. That's the real reason, is we want people to know where to go to find the latest bits, because they won't look at download.gluster.org. So what we've got there today, it's about a week old. We finally got the bits up. We have the full-featured release of Community Gluster is in the storage SIG. As Lala said, right now it's in testing. If you're familiar with the Fedora process, every package goes into testing where it spends anywhere from a few days to a couple weeks. After people have a chance to test it and use it, they may give it karma. If it gets enough karma, it can be promoted to the full release version. And I don't think CentOS has reached the point where they're doing karma voting, but after it's been in testing for a couple weeks, we hope to promote it to the full up release. Which page? There we go. So as I was saying, we want a seamless experience. We want people to look at the SIG. They'll download a single RPM from the SIG, which just populates a yum repo file in your Etsy yum repos.d, and then you can after you install that, then you can install all the other pieces pretty painlessly with just a yum update or a yum install command. And that's what the purpose of the storage SIG is. And as Lala was saying, we're also providing not just Gluster there, but we're providing these dependent packages, Samba, Ganesha. Ganesha is a fairly new project. It's an NFS v4 in userland server. It's going to be the Gluster solution going forward for providing NFS v4. If you've been using Gluster, you know that Gluster provides NFS v3. And so we have these layered applications, or we're using these layered applications. Now, so I'm going to jump into some of the pitfalls that we ran into. It's a little bit technical. This headline of mine is a little bit provocative. It's not entirely true, because I don't think anybody ever really thought that CentOS was the equivalent of RHEL plus EPEL. And in fact, one of the first obstacles we ran into is that packages like Samba, Gluster, and Ganesha have dependencies on packages that are in EPEL or packages that are in private RHEL channels, but they're not available. So when we go to CentOS and build in the SIG, we no longer have access to these packages through EPEL. So what that requires us to do, one of the first things that required us to do was to pull yet another set of packages into the SIG and build them in the SIG. And we'll have I think we have be able to identify a couple examples of what those are. Once we've pulled in those dependent packages and built them, then we can rebuild our packages, Gluster, Samba, Ganesha, and so on. You would have thought, given the similarity between CentOS and RHEL, that our RPM spec files would just carry over seamlessly, we found that actually to not be the case. So there's a little bit of pain involved in doing this. They're not show-stopping problems, but there are extra steps that we have to do. Yeah, I'll come to that in the next slide. Yeah. So, and so we're casting about a little bit, hoping to make things better. Someday maybe that we can just write a single RPM spec file that would work everywhere. Okay, I'm kidding myself. That won't ever happen. But so here's one of our big examples is that the NFS Ganesha people use CMake. Almost probably, well, I shouldn't say a number because somebody would prove me wrong. AutoConf and AutoMake and libtools seem to be the dominant configuration tools. And CMake is this little sort of niche config tool, and that's what the Ganesha people decided they liked. Well, RHEL has CMake. It happens to be CMake 2.6. EPEL has this package. Is this a pointer too? EPEL has this package CMake 2.8, and the binaries in that are CMake 2.8, and that gives us CMake and EPEL. And Lala was saying that Centos, you can't put your own packages in, but somehow Centos has gotten to CMake version 2.8. So these are kind of a disjoint set. There's really no overlap. So we already had to hack around supporting 2 different versions of CMake, and we thought we had the problem solved, and then we got to the CentOS SIG and discovered, oh no, our work was not done. We have to hack up our spec file a little bit more, and then we can build it. So backing up a little bit, going back to the discussion about, well, Gluster's not an EPEL, and other thing, but NFS Ganesha is an EPEL. If you go look, if you were curious. But if you look at the Ganesha that's in EPEL, it doesn't have our special libgf API FASAL. This is a shim library that lets Ganesha speak directly to the Gluster servers without having to go through Fuse. So there's a version of Ganesha in EPEL, but it's not the fully featured version that we really want everybody to be using. And this is part of the reason why we're in the SIG, is that in the SIG, we can deliver a version of Gluster and a version of NFS Ganesha that's fully featured and has all the latest and greatest performance enhancements. So in this case, we see the storage SIG as a big win because we can deploy software that has the features that we want people to be using and testing. Another package, the other package, big package that we have in the SIG is the Samba suite of CIFS for CIFS file systems. We ran into some of the same problems. I call it a beast because Samba has a lot of dependencies and just has a lot of ripple effects as it extends its fingers into a lot of different places. And getting Samba built in for the SIG was a bit of a challenge. There's like I said, a lot of dependencies. Not all of them that are in RHEL are in a channel that most people get. So that means they're not in CentOS. And this is where we really had to start pulling lots of dependent packages into the storage SIG, just in order to be able to build Samba. And yeah, there's the beastie. So is this where I switch back to you? Okay.
Yeah, so this building Samba was actually, little difficult for us because Samba was not in EPEL, and we are trying to build Samba 4.1, which has some new dependencies, which was not in IPL. Yeah, which was not in IPL. So where to get these RPMs? Like you go to upstream to those packages and directly bring these packages to CentOS SIG. It's like I'm not a Samba guy. Now I have like 5 dependent packages from for Samba in storage SIG, and who gonna maintain it? It's just not about providing packages. What about the security fixes? Or what about the bug fix release from those upstream releases? So it's a bit of a pain. It's like, we need to make it happen and want more people to join in, and so that people can maintain these packages and make the whole experience better. So as of now, we have these four projects participating in the storage SIG. So Glusterfs is in the testing repo, and OpenFS people are building it. In the CBS means CentOS build system, which is actually a cozy. So they have a little difficult time there because they have to build certain K modes every time we get a new kernel. Safe is so SAST is again SAST is safe in the same same situation where they're trying to get access of build system and trying to build those RPMs. It's not build it, but it's not been done till now, but would be done very future, like maybe couple of weeks we can see RPMs there. So so as of now in the testing repo is just one location, and when we're gonna put in the stable repo, we're gonna have mirrors so that people can consume it nicely. And I can show you some links of CentOS storage SIG and where to get these repos and how can you use these RPMs. This is the future. We don't know much about it, but it's like what to do about it. For example, we can add Nagios monitoring tools to storage SIG. If people want to use it, we can have a single location and maybe libhut, and can it, if there is enough users and people want to actually control it, the direction of the SIG, can it be evolved like a distribution, which is like storage kind of distributions, totally targeted for storage people community. So yeah, so in future the plan is to if we have enough people in storage SIG, maybe we can the EL packages in download.gluster.org, maybe we don't have to build them, and we'll see how many people are actually using it, and we'll take it as a feedback and see how we can move forward. And you guys are welcome to comment, and all the discussion happens in the CentOS Double mailing list. So if you see the mails, you might see mails from people about SIG and storage SIG specifically. Yeah, so glad to answer any questions you have. Yeah. Right. I agree with you. So that is right. But the other angle to this story is we want to make the whole user experience better. Right? It's like a user story. So yeah, it's something this is something to think about. I mean, if there is a separate SIG which actually builds all these monitoring tools, that's okay. But there is nobody to take Nagios or maintain Nagios, and we need for a storage to basically, we need monitoring tool and storage well integrated with it. Maybe we can take it. For example, Overt. So Overt is something, an example I can give here. So Overt is a GUI management tool. You can actually create cluster volumes there and do stuff with it. But so Overt is in the word SIG because it's more appropriate there because KVM and other virtualization technologies can integrate with Overt. So it's okay. So it's fine. We can consume virtualization SIG for storage SIG also. Yeah.
So the monitoring is kind of farm phase. We have developers in the team developing a cluster-specific Nagios monitoring solution. Now the Red Hat mantra is upstream first, and we're struggling to get those guys to put it out in the upstream where people can see it, and we would want to force the issue a little bit by releasing it somewhere. And the right place to put it would be to put those Nagios modules directly into Nagios, and that would be the ideal solution. And that would be my plan, and that's my suggestion to them. But we might take an interim step and put it in the SIG first,
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, every community has their own priorities, right? So
Any more questions, guys?
Would Docker be a solution?
Docker is in. Docker is actually already part of a SIG. I think it's part of atomic SIG in CentOS.
Yeah, but I mean, put all this into a
Docker
Container.
and deliver that as such instead of how all the RPM dependencies.
Yeah.
you go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, so deploying Gluster in a Docker container is a different way to deploy Gluster, right, in a cloud. So we have people that want to install it directly on bare metal or on virtual machines of their own, and it's been in the back of my mind for a while to put it in a container like Docker, and just provide Docker containers that people can download, and that would be appropriate to have in the storage SIG as well. But we haven't got there yet.
Yeah.
And there are people who are asking for Gluster in CoreOS and some of these other container technologies too. So those are all viable ways to deploy Gluster, and our focus has been on staying ahead of the feature curve. So, and not so much on how it gets deployed.
Yeah.
If somebody in the community wanted to give us a Docker container with Gluster in it, we would happily take it. So.
Yeah.
Was a question?
Yeah.
I've got a question regarding Red Hat storage server and what you seem to like to build in CentOS now. Because when I use CentOS, I use it mostly for development machines, and when I go to production, I switch to RHEL, which is just subscription issues,
Yep.
so to say. And now I'm just saying I like to go for Red Hat storage server, but I like to have developed machines with CentOS on it. And what would you suggest would be the best way to go up with CentOS first, or what's the difference between?
So I think that model translates perfectly. So you can take CentOS, you can use Gluster from the storage SIG, and do your proof of concept, and then when you want to deploy into production, then you can use RHEL and Red Hat storage. Red Hat storage is a subscription model, just like RHEL, and that's a business decision that's above my pay grade.
Why do storage sticks have newer versions than probably what's going to be deployed to your HSS?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So storage SIG is a community stuff, and a lot of people in community, they use Glusterfs community version on CentOS in their production. So it's like a choice for you. So people from community, if you want to go with a commercial product, that's fine, absolutely fine. But if you want to stick to the community version, you can stick, and storage SIG will give you the experience. And obviously storage SIG is community, the community decides the direction, so we can put latest versions, new versions of Glusterfs there, which again Red Hat has to decide which version of Gluster they want to ship in their product.
Okay, the community version is always going to be a little bit ahead of what's in Red Hat storage. They're both based on Gluster 3.6 right now. So
So there where we got a real difference between Red Hat storage server and the SIG, because it's not really binary compatible.
that's correct. Yeah, not quite. They're not bit for bit like CentOS is to RHEL.
Yeah. Yeah.
The theoretical bit for bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so to me, then I couldn't really use it for development, because then I got a difference to production machines. So it's just not the virtualizing issues and the support issue. It's also that there's different versions in it.
That is true. Yes.
Yes.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah, the both things are not related at all. Yeah. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah, there are features in community Gluster that they are technically in Red Hat storage, but they're not supported. They're either
Yeah. Yeah, completely, yeah. Everything goes to first upstream, then, yeah.
And if you find something, let me know, because I'm going to go snag something.
Yeah,
I don't think there's anything
it
in
should be
cold
100.
storage
Yeah.
that's not in the community cluster.
Any more questions, guys? Okay, going 1, going 2, going 3. Thanks for coming.